seen as foreign terror organizations. Would you think about ordering U.S. Special Forces into Mexico to take them out?
Could happen. Stranger things have happened.
60 days ago, Trump made a bold and unprecedented promise to send missiles into Mexico. Now, the cartels are under fire.
We have the U.S. military shoot missiles into Mexico.
Shoot missiles into Mexico for what?
He would say to go after the cartels.
The cartel strongholds are in flames, their kingpins scrambling for cover, and the message from Trump is clear: no more warnings.
Our country is being poisoned from within by the drugs and by all of the other crime that's taking place. The drug cartels are waging war in America, and it's now time for America to wage war on the cartels.
In a move that stunned the world, Donald Trump has unleashed a brutal strike against the cartels, shaking the foundations of organized crime like never before. But the cartels aren't known for just rolling over and taking it. Now, the world watches as these powerful crime bosses react. But is this the beginning of their downfall? Or are they plotting something even more dangerous? With millions at stake and blood already spilled, the next move could change everything.
The cartels have men. They own the ground. They have technicals. They have machine guns. They have everything an army has.
But just realize that's going to be open warfare, not in a foreign country across the ocean. It's going to be right next to your border.
The moment Trump won the US presidential election last year, he promised to take the fight to the cartels. He vowed to treat them as the terrorists they are. And now, he's followed through, with missiles, military force, and a level of aggression the world has never seen. But how did we get here? And how are the cartels fighting back? Donald Trump made it clear from day one. He wasn't going to sit back and let the cartels continue poisoning America. His plan? A full-scale war on the cartels. It started with an executive order designating them as foreign terrorist organizations, FTOs, a label that changed everything.
Now, that's the reason they were called terrorist organizations, designated terrorist organizations, because they've killed more Americans with on their drugs than any terrorist organization in the world. They are now designated terrorists. Do not harm our troops or President Trump, or bring hell rain down.
Under US law, once a group is labeled an FTO, it gives the government sweeping powers to do anything they can to achieve their goal. They can seize assets, conduct military operations, even target individuals linked to these organizations on foreign soil.
So they need to be terrorist organizations. But that puts a whole weight of the United States government on them. Not only are we just going to deal with the operations of Mexico, but Jalisco cartels in 43 countries around the world. So we'll work with other world leaders to attack this cartel all over the world and bring them to the knees.
With the stroke of a pen, Trump unlocked the full force of the US military, intelligence agencies, and law enforcement against these criminal empires.
Furthermore, I will order the Department of Defense to make appropriate use of special forces, cyber warfare, and other overt and covert actions to inflict maximum damage on cartel leadership, infrastructure, and operations.
But Trump wasn't the only one making plans. On the other side of the border, Trump's plan sent the cartels reeling. You see, never in history has a president declared their plans to attack a criminal organization so publicly. And Trump didn't just tell the cartels to watch their back, he detailed why they would need to watch their backs, telling them exactly the ways he plans to come after them. And in response, they went harder. Long before Trump even took office, they started ramping up human smuggling and drug trafficking, preparing for a crackdown.
They're going to push hard right now, the cartels. They know they have to. They have a president coming in that's made it very clear, and based on his track record, he will secure this border. He'll declare it an emergency based on what we've had for the last 4 years, and which means it'll seal that border.
Authorities uncovered dozens of tunnels, some equipped with rail systems, ventilation, and even electricity, used to funnel thousands of people and untold amounts of drugs into the U.S.
As efforts to strengthen security on our southern border increase, Mexican cartels are forced underground to smuggle deadly drugs and other contraband into the United States.
The message was clear. The cartels weren't going to wait around to be wiped out.
And he has the ability to wipe them off the face of the earth. They can claim they're a pretty tough organization, the cartels, and they are, but they're not stronger than the power of President Trump.
Knowing the kind of threat that was coming for them, cartel bosses unleashed their sicarios, highly trained assassins, to the border. The sicarios became more aggressive at the border. Fights between cartel gunmen and Mexican soldiers intensified, with some battles lasting for hours. The cartels were preparing for war, and they weren't afraid to show it.
A chilling video now shows a huge shootout. This is at the southern border. Texas DPS says U.S. Border Patrol responding to gunfire from cartel members seeking refuge on an island between the U.S. and Mexico.
Now, there's one important thing to know about the cartels and how they've managed to survive this long. They're very adaptive, and they have unlimited resources to work with. So when Trump started cracking down on them, they were forced to adapt to his strategies, and they did it fast. But Trump's crackdown didn't just push the cartels to fight harder, it pushed them to fight smarter. Instead of their usual tactics of hiding and waiting out the enemy, they decided to take the fight to the enemy this time around. Recent intel reveals that cartel factions have started deploying military-grade drones, not just for smuggling, but for surveillance and even targeted attacks on rivals and law enforcement.
Weaponized drones in action. Drug cartels using the sophisticated and dangerous drones against each other.
Yeah, so Blake, down here, the energy, we've talked about the morale shifting a lot, but now the energy is shifting to this kind of like heightened alert for law enforcement down here following the authorization of those weaponized drones.
And that's not all they did. They also upgraded their firepower. They invested in armored narco tanks that can withstand high-caliber bullets, high-powered .50 caliber rifles capable of taking down helicopters, and advanced communication networks to avoid military tracking and stay off U.S. radar.
I've been covering this for nearly 4 years. Never really felt unsafe that I needed protective gear. And yeah, now I've got a bulletproof vest down here for me and my team because we don't know what we're going to encounter. We don't know how the cartel is going to be operating.
I think the cartels would be foolish to take on the military, but we know they've taken on the Mexican military before. But now we have the United States military on the border, we got the men and women of the Border Patrol. Do I expect violence to escalate? Absolutely, because the cartels are making record amounts of money.
The U.S. has learned from its past mistakes when it comes to dealing with the cartels, and that's why Trump is taking a new approach. But as the U.S. evolved and adopted new strategies, so did the cartels. So when Trump promised to rain military hell down on them, they simply adapted. If you think the cartels fear military action, think again. These organizations have a long history of brutally eliminating anyone who stands in their way. Politicians, police chiefs, journalists, and even entire towns have fallen under their rule. But the Trump's administration also knew that they knew military force alone wouldn't be enough. So the U.S. launched a three-pronged attack to cripple cartel operations.
And so, yeah, I think you've got to take a multi-step approach, But again, until you shut the border down, I don't think really any of it matters because, it doesn't matter. Like even if you completely defeated them or decimated them to a point where they were retreating, like where are they going to retreat to? Here, right? Or at a minimum, like they have the ability to, if you're putting pressure on them there, to come here. And I think nobody wants that.
Doubling border security personnel, thousands of additional agents were deployed to lock down entry points at the border and crack down on smugglers.
Does that mean the military, our troops, U.S. military at the border with weapons, using weapons if need be?
They need to protect themselves. But the cartels, again, let me give the cartels a warning. If you harm a Border Patrol agent or a soldier, the whole world's going to come down to you. President Trump is a strong president.
Deploying high-tech gear like AI-driven surveillance, thermal imaging, and drone warfare to counter cartel movements.
So we have right now, as of when this tweet was up on the flight tracker, U.S. military aircraft have entered Mexican airspace on the western side of the country of Mexico. It says a strategic electronic reconnaissance aircraft that provides information to the President, Secretary of Defense, and other leaders. So that's what we have right now. A U.S. military plane has entered Mexican airspace.
But probably the most important strategy in this warfare with the cartels is following the money. Federal agencies ramped up financial warfare, seizing cartel bank accounts, freezing assets, and crippling their ability to launder billions in drug money.
It's a far broader issue, and fundamentally, you can whack all these labs, and that hurts them. It takes some revenue, makes it more costly for them, but it's whack-a-mole.
Because you don't just beat the cartels with guns, they have guns too, big ones. You beat them by cutting off their money supply. But unfortunately, despite all of their strategic efforts against the cartels didn't seem to budge. Instead, they got increasingly more aggressive, and you know what followed next.
You're on the ground there. What more do we know, Jorge, about these violent encounters and this new order that is in place?
Well, Marty, tense moments really unfolded on the southern border yesterday in Fronton, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley where we are. It's an area notorious for cartel activity and human smuggling. On Monday, around 1:29 p.m., shots were fired at Border Patrol agents from the Mexican side. Agents took cover, they returned fire, and called for backup.
Every time the U.S. introduced a new policy, the cartels fought back with ruthless precision. When border security was tightened, they launched deadly ambushes on Mexican police.
This here will be drone footage from Texas DPS showing these suspected cartel members fleeing after firing shots at agents. No one was injured on either side.
When their money was frozen, they kidnapped and executed financial investigators. When their supply chains were cut off, they set fire to rival towns and massacred entire families. But this war wasn't just happening in Mexico. It was spilling into America's streets.
And what we've learned here is they believe that this is cartel on cartel fighting there, and that's what the concern is, that that fighting is going to spill over into the United States. Blake, right now, they're not able to make that $13 billion they were making by moving people into the country illegally.
It was 1:29 p.m. in Fronton, Texas, a region notorious for cartel activity and human smuggling. A group of armed cartel members was attempting to smuggle people across the Rio Grande when suddenly, gunfire erupted.
Our agents reported shots being fired towards their direction alongside the border. The shots were coming in from Mexico, and they did return fire. They took cover, and they immediately requested backup.
Within minutes, they were overwhelmed and had no choice but to call in reinforcements.
Multiple agencies joined Border Patrol agents in the investigation. Drones were deployed for surveillance, and the elite border attack unit, which you're looking at now, was deployed. They were armed and ready and arrived to secure the area.
U.S. drone operators were quickly on the scene and locked onto the gunmen, capturing them before they were able to flee back into Mexico.
Texas Lieutenant Chris Oliveira is saying drone operators captured the gunmen fleeing Mexico due to military presence.
Although no agents were injured, the attack proved a harsh reality. The cartels were no longer just smuggling drugs and people. They were now directly engaging U.S. law enforcement with live gunfire.
Backup was rendered, and subsequently, we've been working with our local and state partners.
Border Patrol officials telling News Nation no agents were injured. The investigation is still ongoing. Agents are working closely with Mexican authorities in Tamaulipas.
But the attack in Fronton was not an isolated incident.
In the area, and Border Patrol officials say that incidents like Fronton once again highlight the daily dangers agents are facing right now.
More armed confrontations between cartel gunmen and U.S. border agents began to happen at an alarming rate. The cartels are attacking U.S. officials head-on and not backing down at all. They're using everything they can think of to slow the U.S. down. Explosive devices have been found near the border, and cartel drones have been found on U.S. soil being used to track and evade U.S. patrols. As the cartel violence escalated, Texas Governor Greg Abbott took immediate action. Being in a border state meant Texas bore the brunt of cartel violence, and Governor Abbott was not backing down. Abbott deployed an additional 400 Texas National Guard troops to the border.
So, Marty, we are learning that Governor Greg Abbott has deployed 400 additional Texas National Guard troops to the southern border. They actually arrived in McAllen yesterday here in the Rio Grande Valley where we are. Governor Abbott deploying those troops from the Texas Tactical Border Force unit.
These troops, part of the Texas Tactical Border Force, were dispatched to reinforce key hotspots, supporting Border Patrol in locking down smuggling routes.
It is a unit that the governor did launch back in 2023. These troopers will be supporting Border Patrol agents on the ground. Troops from this unit will be deployed to key hotspots along the Texas-Mexico border.
Their mission? Secure open areas and high-risk entry points, reinforce border wall repairs, and intercept cartel movements before they reach U.S. soil.
Border Patrol agents on the ground in the Rio Grande Valley say they welcome that added manpower and support.
Purely serving as a security role. What type of security? That means security along our border, securing open areas and securing any type of infrastructure, along with any type of tools that will be used to repair the wall.
Border Patrol agents welcomed the additional manpower, stating that every shift carries real, unpredictable dangers.
And agents also telling us whether it's a specialty unit or a routine patrol, agents do head out to every shift not knowing the dangers they could possibly encounter on the southern border, Marty.
That risk is real. The governor, Greg Abbott, sending more troops, Jorge, to the Rio Grande Valley. What's the latest on that?
And just across the border in Tamaulipas, a war was brewing. the town was experiencing cartel violence like never before.
Tamaulipas sits just across the border from where we are here in the Rio Grande Valley, a hotspot for cartel violence.
Gun battles between cartels and the military raged on. Multiple explosions reported in multiple towns. At some point, the U.S., the State Department elevated its travel advisory to level 4, urging Americans, do not travel.
The U.S. State Department has also elevated its travel advisory for Tamaulipas to level 4 for Americans to do not travel, citing crime, kidnapping, gunfights, and explosive threats.
Mexican authorities have even warned residents not to touch any suspicious objects, as criminal groups began using explosives in their attacks.
Agents are working closely with Mexican authorities in Tamaulipas. At this time, no arrests have been made. Mexican authorities in Tamaulipas have also issued a warning to residents about criminal groups using explosives. Citizens are advised not to touch or move them.
With cartel violence reaching unprecedented levels, one thing is clear: the cartels aren't just fighting for power, they're fighting for survival.
And Border Patrol officials telling News Nation, by having these additional troops here on the southern border, agents could actually focus on the border security and apprehending any individuals trying to enter the country illegally. DHS sources telling News Nation that the cartel members were attempting to smuggle a group across the river, but none of them made it onto U.S. soil. The troops are arriving from Fort Worth and Houston with military transport aircraft, including C-130s and Chinook helicopters, all dispatched to this region here. The Texas Tactical Border Force is part of the state's Operation Lone Star Border Security Initiative.
It's important to know that the U.S. has employed several strategies in dealing with the cartels, with the single goal of eliminating them. Yet every time they make headway, the cartels somehow adapt, survive, and even come to thrive again. They were like a hydra snake, cut one head and several more spring up in its place. When Trump took office on January 20th, 2025, he knew he could not employ the same strategies his predecessors employed. They simply didn't work. He knew he had to do something different, something that would shake the core of the cartels, eviscerate the snake once and for all. And he knew it had to be big, so he promised military precision strikes to take out the cartel's kingpins, destroy their revenue stream, and cripple their hierarchy once and for all. No one thought it was possible. Until now. Missiles, precision strikes, U.S. military operations inside Mexico. For the first time, the United States directly targeted cartel compounds with military-grade firepower. Satellite images showed obliterated cartel facilities, burning vehicles, and entire operations reduced to rubble. The cartels had been hit where it hurt most. Their leaders were on the run. Their weapons depots were in flames. And for the first time in decades, it seemed like their power was starting to crumble. But is it really over? But here's the chilling reality. The cartels never go down without a fight. If history has taught us anything, it's that when the cartels are cornered, they become even more dangerous. With Trump's military strikes, the question isn't just whether the cartels are in panic mode, it's what comes next. Could this be the final battle, or have we just unleashed a war that no one is prepared for?
The cartels have men. They own the ground. They have technicals. They have machine guns. They have everything an army has.
But just realize that's going to be open warfare, not in a foreign country across the ocean. It's going to be right next to your border.
This fight is far from over. Trump made a promise. He would take the fight to the cartels. And now, with precision military strikes, border crackdowns, and an all-out financial war, that promise has become a reality. But as history has shown, the cartels never go down without a fight. Cartel forces are proving to be more ruthless, more organized, and more heavily armed than ever before. The question now is, will this be the final blow that cripples cartel operations for good, or has the U.S. just ignited a war with no clear end in sight? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into the world's most dangerous conflicts. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.